Hello everyone, this past year I played a lot of games. In this video I'm going to attempt to review them all. These games aren't exclusive to 2023, though there are a few on here that just came out this year. I also want to rate each game based on my own personal enjoyment of them, and I want you to know that these ratings are completely subjective to my own personal tastes, so there really isn't any weight to how high or low I rate these games. I'm going to try my best to avoid any major spoilers, but there might be a few, so if you care about playing any of the following, you might try them out before giving this video a watch. With all that being said, let's get right into it. I've always wanted to get into D&D. The problem is my core group of friends I hang out with doesn't really want to participate in getting a group together for it. Enter Baldur's Gate 3. There's not much I can say about Baldur's Gate 3 that hasn't already been said by reviewers and gamers way more qualified than me. That said, BG3 is a brilliant game. At its core, it's essentially a D&D campaign with complete freedom for players to play how they decide. I like to describe BG3 to my friends as D&D that you can play by yourself. Larian Studios created a masterpiece of a game with gripping characters and more options for player freedom than any game I've ever played. It's hard to talk about BG3 without mentioning the side characters. They are some of the best written companions of any game in 2023. Each character can seemingly exist without the player ever even acknowledging them. For the characters the player chooses to interact with, they will find each one to be well written with a complex backstory, their own motivations, wants, and desires. The characters are not static, as progressing through the main story will have them develop and shape them into more fleshed out beings. If you're a big fan of ensemble pieces with a myriad of characters, you'll definitely enjoy Baldur's Gate 3. For me, the biggest draw of BG3 was the freedom it offered to players. Baldur's Gate 3 feels like the game that Todd Howard thinks he's making. You can literally play how you like. My first playthrough was unconventional to say the least. I played as Bard who talked his way out of nearly every situation. Combat wasn't my strong suit, but talking was. The best part about this playstyle is that it's completely viable. I found myself talking my way out of situations commonly. For example, near the end of Act 2, there's a massive planned out fight between the player's party and a demon waiting in ambush. If you have high enough charisma, and are lucky enough with your dice rolls, the fight becomes completely optional. Situations like these are why I love Baldur's Gate 3. I love that the game lets me dictate how I get to play. In my first playthrough, I condemned a village of innocent people because I thought it would give me a better shot with a sexy drow lady. A little bit of a spoiler? It did. I also cut the head off of one of the game's most beloved characters, I'm still sorry Karlach, you didn't deserve that, and completely skipped a massive portion of the game in the Underdark because in my playthrough no one ever told me how to get there. I let a hag live in Act 1 because she permanently raised my power, and I still found her causing trouble in Act 3. My wizard companion even left me in Act 1 because I refused to let him eat my precious loot. The best part of these decisions were that they were my decisions to be made. It's freedom like this that can make every playthrough feel unique and is no doubt the reason Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. Overall, BG3 is a masterpiece of a game and 100% deserves all the praise it's receiving. If you haven't tried out Baldur's Gate 3 yet, I cannot recommend it enough. I haven't even mentioned yet that this game is multiplayer and is a ton of fun to play with your friends. To me it feels like an afterthought almost, but I think that just describes how good this game is. It's easy to clock over 100 hours in this game in a single playthrough, and essentially has endless replayability. I give it a 5 out of 5. I am a complete simp for FromSoft games. The difficult bosses and ambiguous storytelling are huge draws for me. I love the struggle of dying to a boss over and over just to eventually overcome that challenge through sheer willpower, skill, and sometimes a bit of luck. This year, I revisited the very first FromSoft game I ever played, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I just wanted to see if it was as difficult as my first time playing it. Sekiro follows the story of Wolf as he travels the lands of Ashina in order to save the young lord he's sworn to protect and serve. Throughout his journey, he encounters battles with numerous samurai, snakes, bulls, demons, shinobi, monkeys, and whatever those snake eyes people are. The setting of Sekiro is one of my favorites as I'm pretty obsessed with historical Japan. The question I had though was not one of storytelling but of skill. Had I gotten good over these past few years in various journeys into FromSoft's different games? The best part of Sekiro is the combat. It's the furthest departure from FromSoft's tried and true formula. Dodge rolling is replaced with parrying, and rather than getting out of the way of every attack, you have to face each and every challenge head on. Back in 2019, the game took a toll on me, and I remember cheesing most of the bosses I couldn't easily defeat, using guides from YouTube. I didn't understand the concept of learning and adapting after dying, but after playing through the rest of FromSoft's catalog, I finally understood how Sekiro is meant to be played. My playthrough this year took me just over 8 hours, and I loved nearly every second of it. My favorite bosses consisted of Genichiro, Ishin, and Lady Butterfly. Each of these fights are perfect examples of just how refined Sekiro's combat is. These fights play nearly like rhythm games where the clashing of swords makes a masterful melody of music. Ingraining the fundamentals of parrying is really all you need to beat the game. It's an essential part of it, and I'm happy to say that over my time playing it this year, I had become great at it. Now the game isn't all perfect, there are some areas that are pretty annoying to deal with, and a few of the more gimmicky fights are pretty lackluster, and even sometimes the parrying, which is the game's biggest selling point, turns into this weird little sword wiggling dance. But overall, the good in this game far outweighs the bad. I recommend this game to anyone looking for a single player challenge that you'll get reasonably frustrated with. I give it a 4 out of 5. You know, I never really used to be a big fan of shooters growing up. I'd always played them as I grew up an Xbox kid playing games like MW2 and Halo Reach, and I sure enjoyed playing them with friends, but they were never really any of my favorite games. In late 2021, I was invited to play a game that I had heard about but didn't really know anything about. That game was Valorant, and I've been playing it ever since. Valorant is one of my most played games of 2023, despite not playing it nearly as much as I did last year. There is something inherently thrilling about playing a competitive game where players of similar skill are pitted against each other. Valorant is half a tactical shooter and half a champion shooter with an ever-growing roster of playable characters and maps. The gunplay in Valorant takes priority over the character aspect, but it's these characters' abilities that turn the tide of battle. There are 4 different roles in Valorant: duelists, initiators, sentinels, and controllers. Duelists excel in taking fights and fragging for their team, often having some kind of movement option to easily get in and out of combat. Initiators' strength come from the ability to assist the rest of their squad in fights. They usually have some means of obtaining information on the enemy. Sentinels are defensive juggernauts, typically in charge of locking down choke points and flanks. Controllers' jobs are to put out smokes that block off sightlines in different parts of the map in order to help their team take or protect bomb sites. The objective of the game is to win rounds by either detonating the spike or killing the enemy team. The first team to win 13 rounds wins the match. At the end of the day, these rounds are what make up Valorant. No round is ever the same, as heroics from one player can influence individual rounds, but these individual plays don't usually guarantee wins outright. Some things I don't like about Valorant are the movements feeling sluggish at times. It feels like characters get stuck in cement after getting shot, and occasionally gunfights boil down to RNG spray battles, as the guns in the game don't have consistent recoil patterns. Some agents often feel outright broken while others feel borderline unplayable, but Riot is pretty decent about consistently updating their games, even if sometimes the changes they make feel out of touch with the changes that need to be made. I'm looking at you, Deadlock. It would also be difficult to talk about Val without mentioning just how toxic the community of players can be. Riot Games is somewhat notorious for fostering communities that are outright toxic, and Valorant is no exception. If you play this game solo, you are undoubtedly going to run into the worst kind of people at some point or another, no matter what your rank is or your skill level. This is why I personally prefer to play in a big group of friends, but overall I would recommend giving Valorant a try, even if you don't necessarily love the genre. I give it a 3 out of 5. Celeste was my favorite indie game I played this year. I heard about Celeste back in 2018 when it made an appearance at the Game Awards, but I never tried it out until this year. I don't really play a lot of platformers, so I was worried about getting into this game. Some platformers are ridiculously difficult to me, and this makes the barrier for playing them hard to get past. Celeste does a great job of easing the player in, while leaving its more difficult challenges accessible to players who really want them. Celeste follows the story of Madeline, a young woman who is on a journey of climbing Celeste Mountain. As the story develops, we find that Madeline has some intrinsic issues that become external opponents while climbing the mythical mountain. Ultimately, she is able to accomplish what she sets out to do, which is climbing to the peak of the mountain by accepting herself as she is. The story is gripping and really resonates with me. The gameplay of getting over various obstacles is what drew me in initially, but the story is what I stayed for. I saw it as my personal mission to get Madeline to the top of that mountain because that's what she set out to do, far from home, all alone. In a way, making this video is my mountain. I feel like if I can just get it done, then I can accomplish anything. This game had the biggest emotional impact on me out of anything I played this year, and I can't recommend it enough. It's accessible to those who aren't necessarily platform grinders, and the pacing makes it feel like you're constantly in the action. In between levels, you're given these beautiful moments to breathe and where Madeline meets these various friends along the way, and I just have to say, this game is absurdly beautiful. My only gripe with this game is that the final missions really ramp up the difficulty. Even then, this difficulty spike feels intentional as the player is so invested by this point, they dare not stop. It almost has a Sekiro-like approach in creating levels that are difficult at first but become easier from constant trial and error. I give Celeste a 5 out of 5. I never thought I would give Genshin Impact a try. To me, it looked like a gacha game that was shamelessly ripping off Breath of the Wild, which, in my opinion, it is. But here I am still going to tell you why I like this game. Genshin Impact filled that void that I've been looking for in a game for a while now. I've been looking for a game to mindlessly grind in, and Genshin scratches that itch perfectly. It's hard to describe what makes this game good, but I enjoy it for the overly simplified combat. In Genshin, you really only have to worry about managing 2 different abilities on each character in a team of 4. This makes combat simple, but overall really satisfying. There are different elements in Genshin that react with each other and make combat more interesting, as certain reactions can lead to way more powerful attacks. My personal team comp does a reaction called Hyper Bloom, a reaction between the elements Dendro, Hydro, and Electro. This reaction is one of the strongest in the game and causes attacks to hit like a truck every time it occurs. Exploration is also a pretty big part of Genshin's appeal. You can essentially walk anywhere on the map with enough time. Half of my time spent on the game feels like it's been going from tower to tower in order to unlock more of the map. There is, however, a chance that this is all just sunken cost fallacy, though, as I have already spent money on the game. I ended up with a team I wanted, and I think that's unfortunately a big part of the game's appeal. Getting a team you like. I think in order to be invested in the game, you have to like the characters you play. And with the base characters they give you, well, they just really aren't that flashy at all, so it's pretty difficult. Obviously, you can grind the game enough in order to get all the characters you want, but if you're not already into the game, you probably don't want to do that. The story is decent enough to keep players invested, but in my opinion, the game gets so much better when you have characters you like to play. I give Genshin a 3 out of 5. I think my personal favorite game that I've played this year is Lethal Company. Lethal Company is a multiplayer horror game in which a team of up to 4 players are tasked with going into monster-infested, backrooms-esque, randomly generated facilities to gather scrap to sell in order to make a quota for the company. After a quota is reached, the amount of money needed to be raised for the next one is increased, making the game harder and harder the more successful you become. Throughout the player's journey through the facilities, they are likely to encounter giant spiders, slime monsters, face suffocating leeches, shadow men, and many other horrifying creatures. With all this said, Lethal Company is one of the funniest games I've ever played. The proximity voice chat coupled with the goofy looking characters leads to some hilarious situations in which you can watch your friends panic with sheer terror. I think that's the appeal of Lethal Company. You get to experience these terrifying situations alongside your friends. There's a reason Lethal Company has been getting all the praise it has lately. The reason being, it's genuinely a mix of fear and laughter bottled up in a silly package. I give Lethal Company a 5 out of 5. One of my favorite series that doesn't take a whole lot of skill or brainpower to play is Peggle. My favorite game in the series is Peggle Knights. Peggle Knights is the follow-up to the original Peggle. For those who've never played it, Peggle is a pachinko-like game in which the player is tasked with eliminating orange pegs through the help of the Peggle Masters. Each Peggle Master has a unique ability that can affect gameplay in a number of ways. The newest addition to the roster of Peggle Masters in this game is Marina. Marina is a squid whose power allows a shockwave to travel between the ball and the bucket. On certain levels, she's outright broken. The other masters of note are Lord Cinderbottom, a dragon that shoots fireballs through anything in its path, and Warren, a bunny with the ability to use any of the other masters' abilities alongside with his own magic hat that affects the ball's trajectory and clears out additional pegs in its path. All the other masters have their place, but in my opinion these 3 reign supreme. Peggle Knights is a cozy game that can be enjoyed by anyone. It's a game with a simple concept that can be replayed over and over. All in all, I recommend you try it for yourself. Whether you play it for 5 minutes or 5 hours, it'll be a great experience. The only downside to Peggle Knights is that it's an older game now and can only be played in small windows. It's really not a big issue, but it is annoying to deal with at times. Overall, I give Peggle Knights a 4 out of 5. Alright, welcome to the lightning round where I describe these games in about 1 or 2 sentences. I once loved Dead by Daylight, but Wesker players made the game too annoying. 2 out of 5. FIFA 23 was pretty fun, as I'd never played a FIFA game before. I don't feel like I know enough about the series in the 12-something hours I played of the game though, as most of my time was spent playing goalkeeper for my friends in pro clubs. 3 out of 5. I begrudgingly began to play Fortnite with a few friends a week or so ago, and the game is pretty fun. Just play no build and enjoy killing bots before the inevitable player run team destroys you. It's impressive just how many different game modes there are. 3 out of 5. Phasmophobia got a new update not long ago that overhauled the store and buying process. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the changes, but some people might like them. It's a bit more grindy now. 2 out of 5. Final Fantasy XIV is a game I've played for years now, and it's fun when it regularly receives content updates. The problem is they are months apart from each other and don't typically add a ton of staying power to the game for the casual non-raider like myself, so I give it a 3 out of 5 for now. I love the art style in Pizza Tower, but I'm still bad at platformers. If I had finished the game, I probably would have done a longer review, but I'm still only about a third of the way through it. 2023 is certainly a time to decide to get into League of Legends. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't make myself enjoy this game. The barrier to entry feels too high with all the different champions out now. 1 out of 5. Now, I've played a lot of games in 2023, and I mostly enjoyed all of them I've listed. I typically only play games that I find fun, so it was a joy to have so many great options available this year. I think my new favorite experiences were Baldur's Gate 3 and Lethal Company, while games like Celeste were great for single playthroughs. I look forward to mainstays that I will continue to play like Valorant and Final Fantasy XIV, but am more so interested in new gems that I will discover in 2024. If you watched this far, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really want to get into making YouTube content, as it's been a dream of mine for a while now. So if you've liked anything I had to say, please like the video and subscribe. I also stream all these games on Twitch, so if you'd give me a follow there, I would really appreciate it. The link will be in the description. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.